All right, everybody, welcome to a special episode of Coach's Corner. I'm joined here today with Garrett Bentley. And if you want the full episode, you'll have to head over to www.coachescorneru.com. This episode is sponsored by Coach's Corner, the full academic resource for trainers who want a conceptual knowledge of high level university subject matter and how to apply it to the person in front of you. Also, Subject Zero SUPs, code Paul10, MetriLife, Bacon and Barbells, use code Paul10. And Garrett, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
It's my pleasure. I've been, we've been, I guess, Instagram followers for a little bit. We've chatted back and forth. You've always been someone who I think from the outside looking in has done a tremendous job creating a community within your scope of influence. Haven't met a single person who's had a bad thing to say about you, even though you can be a little bit abrasive in your viewpoints sometimes. But I really just wanted to give you a platform to, say a little bit about, the magic that happens within the walls of the BBC, Barrie Barbell Club. So tell us a little bit about you for people who might not know who you are.
Well, like you said, my name is Garrett Bentley. I'm a strength coach out of Barrie, Ontario, so roughly an hour north of Toronto. I've been in the industry now. This will be my 15th year working in some form of coaching capacity or personal training. Like a lot of people, I started off in the commercial setting. So I worked out of a GoodLife, kind of paid my dues and did my rounds, met members and did some personal training at a value I thought I was worth more than, but happily put the hours in and was able to network with a lot of people. And that just kind of put me down the path of coaching. And I fell in love with the idea of seeing people succeed, seeing people do well and kind of helping people get to that end goal. I'm a strength coach. Like I said, I'm also a competitive powerlifter in the OPA, CPU, IPF stream of things. I also work with Team Canada in regards to coaching. So at the IPF level, I've had the luxury to attend some events with our athletes, do some game day coaching and some real-time coaching, get some feedback there. And again, networking with other international coaches. So yeah, I mean, I'm someone that loves the strength game. I work with a lot of general fitness as well. And I like to kind of find a way to mesh those together and put a barbell in everyone's hand when I can.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely want to touch on because I think it's something that you do quite well. Every time or every post I see from you or from your business page, it's someone who I feel like 10 years ago would never even think about having a barbell in their hands. They've got a barbell in their hands and a smile on their face. And I think that's just phenomenal. But so you worked at GoodLife, when you left GoodLife, did you open Barrie Barbell Club, or was there a time in between where you were in limbo? Like how did that transition go?
Yeah, I kind of bounced around for a bit there. So from GoodLife, I was fortunate enough. One of my friends was a fitness manager at another facility, so it would have been a Snap Fitness. I don't even think they're really around anymore.
I think they folded.
For those that don't know, it's a 24/7 key fob system. They kind of really put that system in motion for a lot of other facilities. And the opportunity was presented to me with very little risk. So there was no overhead. It was, if I worked, I gave a very small percentage to the facility. I could set my own hours. I could build my own brand. And that kind of put me down that pathway of being my own boss and understanding that I need to develop leads, develop sales, and develop that communication skill set on my own. No one was really holding your hand. And I remember like my first month, I made $0 because I had no idea what I was doing. I was used to GoodLife where you get a list of 400 names and you just call them and you make sales. So from there, I was in that facility for about 6 years. And over time, I ended up getting into some managerial stuff. I was overseeing 2 clubs in the Newmarket area, which was great. It put me in a position where I had more authority. I was overseeing other trainers. But I was also getting burnt out on the coaching side of things. I mean, you can only do so many weeks of a 50-hour week plus training on top of it, it takes a toll.
Absolutely.
From there, obviously, like you said, the clubs did fold. We got heads up that was going to fold. And I positioned myself with a gym at the time, would have been Athlete Performance Systems. So
Okay.
so a lot of people are familiar with Athlete Performance Systems. Were pretty relevant. Obviously, they've gone under since. They're pretty relevant in the powerlifting as well as the athlete side of things. And I was fortunate enough to meet up with some strength coaches out of there. So Nick Trillo and Taylor Shaggett, two really solid dudes that just know their shit. And it put me in a position where I was already competing in powerlifting, but I was really just kind of thrown in and exposed to the sport in its entirety. Once that facility closed, I kind of bounced around a little bit. I was paying rent out of gyms. I was renting these little broom closets. And one of the physiotherapists from Athlete Performance Systems had reached out. He was doing his own thing. He had his own space. And there was this 600 square foot, one bay door, poorly lit, hole in the wall space that he was willing to rent to me for pretty cheap.
Perfect.
I dove in head first because I was like, you know what? I can do almost nothing and cover my rent. So the opportunity is overwhelming in how well this could do. And sure enough, within I think it was 4 months out of that little space doing just one-on-ones and some small group coaching stuff, we ended up needing a bigger space. Obviously, he's partnered with some other people as well, some of the physios, chiros, and they've formed Strive Sport Medicine in Barrie, Ontario. Let's plug. So we have a physio clinic, chiro. We have sport med doctors, which is fantastic in terms of the network I have in my facility. But it put me into this space here, which is now roughly 4 times the size, or about 1,800 square foot, give or take. And I mean, we've been here for a year during the pandemic, and we're already looking to expand to the second floor of our unit and got that and reno that. So that's kind of how I got into like the BBC, the Barrie Barbell Club. It was some lucky breaks, some good networking, and some gyms closing kind of just steered me in this direction.
So that's honestly, that's a really natural, it seems like a really natural progression, right? So you start out in this big industry. We all know the flaws associated with commercial fitness and how they push personal training. And then you mentioned, feeling burnt out and wanting to branch out on your own to create to curate the type of experience for your clients that you feel would best suit them. And correct me if I'm wrong, but your business model is not predicated on your gym making any money at all.
Nope. So whatever the gym itself, and when I talk about the gym making money, that's from like merchandise, that's from gym memberships, anything like that. Anything that comes in from that revenue stream or that pathway of income, that all goes back into the gym in terms of new equipment for the members or in facilitating events for the members. So obviously 2020, we saw next to no events in terms of powerlifting or in the strength community. So every dollar we had went to doing social events for our members, where there was in-house competitions like pull-up competitions, bench body weight for reps, or max 405 deadlift, whatever the competition was. And I think at that time we had collected in that month, I think it was like 1,700 in memberships and revenue. And that all went to prizes, gift cards, food, and just other things to give back to our members. The way the membership is set up is I'll use like an OPA event as an example, because that's obviously the stream I'm a little more familiar with. We have, say, 15 athletes going to provincials. The gym will then reach out. It will set up room rentals at an Airbnb. We will cover the entirety of the cost for all of the members to attend that event, as well as if the funds are there, we can allocate the funds. We will provide groceries and food while our athletes are there. So we basically take all of that income and give back to our community. So we don't look at it really as a business. It's more of the athletes are investing in their competitive future in terms of setting themselves up to do well at those events and alleviate some of that stress. And in saying that, obviously the gym does make money through personal training, coaching, other streams. But a large chunk of the money is allocated to going back to those members.
That, like, my mouth is wide open. I'm like, wow, that's an incredible, it's almost like a co-op.
Yeah.
It's a co-op that you facilitate, and people are investing um, in their own progress. But you don't coach only powerlifters, right? Like there's a lot of Gen Pop in your gym.
Yeah, so the in-person stuff, you do get a lot of Gen Pop, and obviously, like I said, we have that partnership with the physio clinic, so we do get a lot of referrals from that. Where obviously a lot of problems can get fixed by just getting a little bit stronger.
For
Um,
sure.
there's a lot of people that come from physio and they've done their TKEs, they've done their rotator cuff work, but at some point they just need to pick up a barbell or a dumbbell or a kettlebell, and they just need to move and get a little bit stronger in some ranges. So that's a really good progression in terms of the Gen Pop stuff we do. I'd say the facility on average carries about 65-35 split in terms of powerlifters versus general pop.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously there's some drop-ins as people show up for a month, leave for a month, whatever that may be. But yeah, we have a healthy amount of general fitness athletes. And then we have some specialized athletes. So we have some hockey players and some football players. We've done a lot of volleyball. We worked with one university level volleyball player, and just word of mouth, we now have almost the entirety of their team. So looks like we're going to be a volleyball gym going forward. Maybe, I don't know.
Volleyball is a fun sport to coach. I did it quite a bit. I was the head strength coach for the Ottawa Mavericks volleyball club
Okay, cool.
for a couple of years in university before I moved to the States. So how would you say I feel like a lot of people would have trouble operating a competitive level powerlifting club with Gen Pop around. Like, how do you integrate the two of them, or how have you created a culture where they can both kind of push themselves side by side?
So that's one of the issues I saw at a lot of other, and I'll circle back to this, a lot of like the commercial gyms, like a Good Life. You have people there that are training for powerlifting,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't really fit in. They stand out like a sore thumb. They're resting 9 minutes between sets. They're
Yes.
getting talked out of their Ziploc bag in their duffel bag. They're carrying their duffel bag around with them through the gym. They stand out, and you can tell that's not the environment they want to be in, or that they
Mm-hmm.
should be in at least. And again, having been a powerlifter training out of a commercial gym, I understood that. So anyone that comes in here, the main thing that we establish right out the gate, and we set the expectation pretty quick,
Mm-hmm.
is we are a strength gym for everyone. So you can train for powerlifting. You can train to get your groceries out of the car in one trip. We don't care what you train for, but if you come here, the goal is you get stronger, you move better. That's it. Whatever the end goal is, that's obviously going to be an individual journey, and that's fine. But then on my end, I force interaction between members. So we have some 60-year-old members that come in at 6 in the morning, and we have some 20-year-old kids that come in. And I tell the 20-year-old kids, treat him as you would any other member. If you're going to talk shit to the 25-year-old that you're lifting with, you talk shit to him.
Love
you
it.
expect him to give it back. We've got some 47-kilo female lifters that the stuff that comes out of their mouth, you wouldn't believe it. And they'll look a 6'7" man in the face and just talk shit. And it's great.
It.
That's the environment, right?
Yeah, of course.
And again, like I came from a sports background, the locker room, like I understand, like that's how you build that community, and that's what I was driving. And then it's just setting the gym up with small things to make that happen. Like Fridays when we're open, we do snack day Fridays. So every member, it's either you bring in one shareable food item that we can, obviously with the pandemic, Ziploc bag, individual portions, all that stuff. But you bring in an item, or you end up with some sort of punishment. You end up on the air bike. You end up doing burpees, or something that you just don't want to do, especially as a powerlifter. And then we made some investments elsewhere. Like we have a Nintendo Switch with a few video games. So say you show up, you're warming up, okay, you hop on there, you play with someone, and you trash talk each other, or when you're done, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our record board with your standard squat, bench, deadlift. But then to get other members included in that, because obviously your 60-year-old man is not going to break the squat record, or probably won't. But we have records for, fastest 10 cal on the air bike, or most bodyweight pull-ups unbroken. Just some things that expose weakness in powerlifters, and it gives that Gen Pop a chance to be included and to show that they're better at something that a powerlifter isn't. And again, it just drives that community, because powerlifters will cheer for that old man to hop on the air bike, and that old man is getting hype and screaming when he sees someone squatting heavy, right? So it's just really driving the factor that we're all in it together and we all want to see each other do well.
And that's awesome. There's a lot of nuggets of wisdom in there, and I'm wondering, like, how, as you've kind of grown your gym and as you've grown your brand, where are some places that you've drawn influence from in order to get these ideas? Like, I'm assuming not everything came off the top of your head, although maybe some of it did. But like, where are some areas that you've looked to for light bulbs?
So I mean, like, I think I'm really lucky in terms of, especially powerlifting, for example. I got into the sport relatively early, and I was able to become friends with a lot of really influential lifters and some really good coaches. And I'm in a position now where I can hop on Xbox and play video games with like a Bryce or a Dylan, or I can message Nick or Taylor at any point. I can just kind of pick their brain and kind of bounce ideas off of them and just have general conversations, see where it leads.
Mm-hmm.
I've also looked at a lot of gyms that I've been at that have failed, and I've seen why they didn't do well, or gyms that I've trained at or rented space at and seen what I didn't like about it. And then one of the main things that I really, really took to heart, it's the concept of buying in.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, Brett Bartholomew.
Yep.
Yep. So obviously, I think that book I've listened to probably 15 times at this point. And just the idea of creating buying, creating that desire to want to be a part of a community. That was probably the biggest one, as well as just pulling from sports. Like, I can't stress enough community. Like any team that I was on, the teams that I look back on that I had the most fun, they could have been a losing record, but it was a team where we all got along. We were all in it together. We lost together, we won together, and we got drunk in the parking lot together. That's what I look to, right?
That's so Canadian.
Yeah. Finish a hockey game, go out and drink in the parking lot.
Win or lose, we still booze.
That's the mindset.
So you also coach a lot of online clients, right? Like you've a good online business. And I feel like you got into that quite early too. Like online definitely has taken off within the last 2 to 3 years, but I remember seeing you coaching online, much before that. And I'm wondering number one, how you got started with online coaching, and then how you feel kind of it's evolved in its iterations.
So online coaching, I started in 2000. It would have been 2013, 2014.
Yeah, about the same time I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it was again pretty early adaptation to the whole process. I was actually training because a lot of my background started in bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my athletes was moving, and they weren't willing to get a new coach, and we sat down and just kind of started brainstorming what we could do to make this work. And I was like, well, for a lot of my athletes, I emailed them a program. I'm sure we could do that, and then we need to create some sort of communication network, some sort of feedback loop that we can talk and kind of hash things out. And I mean, kudos to her. She put up with a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors on my end. It was a learning experience, and I honestly, I don't even think I charged her, to be honest. Like, to be completely frank, I don't think I charged her because I had no idea what I was doing, and I also thought the time investment on my end, I was like, oh, I have to send a program and I'll hear from a week. It's fine. But it was like daily, like every day there was a question. There was something that needed to come back, and I was like, oh, this is a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be. And then I'd say probably 6-7 weeks in, I started to kind of find my stride with it. She mentioned my name to a few of her friends, who then reached out, and obviously they're in a different region, and we kind of just developed this system. And I look back on it now, and I want to throw up looking at how I was doing it, because there was so many mistakes.
Yeah, but I think we all look back on the programs we've written or systems we had in place. And we're like, man, that was so stupid. But I started coaching for free. I started coaching for free too. Like even when I was even when I was at Queens, I still had a couple online clients. I was like, man, I can write you a program, 2 minutes, done.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh man, I'm always on my phone and all this stuff.
Yeah,
maybe there's a business here.
Yeah, maybe I can make some money off it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say there's anything wrong with doing stuff for free. Like, we just hired 2 trainers for the facility. And I told him, like, reach out to people in your network that you think want to get in shape and offer free coaching. Like, offer 12 weeks of coaching. In
There's
12
nothing
weeks,
wrong with that. There's something beneficial from that because that's how you
exactly.
learn.
What you're doing, you're evolving your system and you're learning. You're going to make mistakes, and it's better to do it with the guy that's getting free coaching than the one that's paying you $300 a month. Um, there's a lot to be learned there, and I think a lot of people, especially in the beginning, overvalue what they're worth in terms of what they're offering. Like, if you're sending out a typed up program in Microsoft Notepad and you're giving no feedback, you probably shouldn't be charging for that. There's more to be done there, right?
Yep.
And then in terms of just like how coaching online has evolved night and day. Yeah. I think when I started, there was a handful of people doing it, and you could see it more so in the bodybuilding industry. And obviously that was kind of when that started to really boom with like bikini, physique, things like that. The online presence of coaches really exploded out of nowhere with social media, Instagram, Facebook.
Of course.
And then I remember just like following along with what some coaches that I thought were good coaches were doing. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. You can make this way easier. And then obviously, like, I started kind of diving in and started learning basic formula functions, Excel, Google Sheets, things like that. And I mean, now, like, if I have to, not including like the review of a program, I can write a program in a few minutes because everything that I do is automated. I get basic input and metrics from an athlete, and the program, because I've got enough data points for that person now, it starts spitting out projections of what they should or shouldn't be doing. In terms of like MRV, MEV, in terms of like with a reference to Prelpin's chart, things like that. And then my job really at that point is I go through and I just double check everything, make sure it makes sense. I look at the end goal, and then, okay, we have a starting point for a new block. And that frees up a lot of time for me to do more review of video, more feedback, have those conversations. I can free up 7 hours on a Sunday to sit down with athletes and have those conversations, have those video calls, have those phone calls, or grab a coffee when the world permits, things like that, right? But yeah, I mean, I think we saw, I think it's still pretty prevalent right now that online coaching, everyone's a coach. Yeah. But I think what we're seeing now is we're starting to see a depreciation in the value of that service because it's saturated. You get a lot of people, and I'm sure you get it all the time too. People email you with an inquiry about coaching, and the first thing they ask is how much. There's no, hey, how are you? No, this is what I'm looking to do. It's how much. And because the market's so saturated, you have coaches out there that are writing these terrible programs for $10 a month. And that's anyone that says online coach now, that's where a lot of us get looped into, right? Or we get bunched together.
Yeah, there's no delineation between a program writer and a coach. Yeah. Like what you said about, the program takes me 2 minutes, the interactions take me 7 hours. That's the way it should be, right? I've always said, number one, that coaching is as much art as it is science. Like we make value judgments on the decisions we make with the training, but it's how we communicate that and educate the lifter on the process, how we bring them along with us, how we create that buy-in, how we adjust on the fly. That's what they're paying for. They're not paying for the piece of paper.
No, right? And that's hitting the nail on the head. That's exactly what a coach should strive to do.
Yeah. The cool thing that I like to see whenever I'm, you say, no judgment to others. No, we're judging you. Every time you look on the internet, you're judging someone.
I'm pretty clear that I'm probably judging.
Yeah, I'm probably judging. But whenever I look at someone's page, the big thing is like, I want to see how their engagement is back and forth with those that they're interacting with. And one thing that I've always noticed with you is you do a very good job of prioritizing education. Like you don't advertise that you have a big YouTube page, but I know you're recording videos all the time and sending them to athletes or posting them somewhere in some database. And so I'm wondering, like, has that been a big way in which you've added to that community aspect of your coaching clients?
I think it is in terms of, I think I've created more value in my service in doing that.
Okay.
But also from a business side of things, I think I've also streamlined my service, because the way that whole video thing started and that video library started, and I think on that private channel, I think there's like 300 videos or something now.
Oh, wow.
And again, like some are 1 minute, some are 12 minutes of me going on some tangent about how you need to brace better or something stupid, but there's value there still. The way that started is I would just take common questions that I was seeing trends in. I'd be like, you know what? Instead of me answering every single one individually and retyping the same answer that I'm going to type anyway, I'm going to record a video on it. And the next time this gets asked, I'm just going to send them the link. They can watch the video and they have that forever now. They have access to that video. And integrating this into like the online coaching that we were just talking about. One of the things I'm slowly trying to roll out with my programs, it's a lot of backlog data to collect, is interactive exercise database where, say I program a high bar tempo squat. If you scroll over it, it automatically prompts and pops up the YouTube video. So obviously there's a lot of like back off stuff on my end to do. That's the progression of my programming, where the program is in a position from your phone without having to have a third-party app or anything like that, no other subscriptions. It provides a database for that athlete where, say they're training at 3 a.m. and I'm asleep and I won't be able to see the message in time. They can see some sort of semblance to how I would have answered that question to begin with. So I think that now that's more so the reason as to why I stick with it. It's just, it provides a value I don't think can be beat to my athletes. They get what they pay for now.
I love that. Never, like, the perpetual evolution of your system, right? You're never resting on your laurels. You're never staying stagnant in what you're trying to accomplish. You're always trying to add value to what you're doing. One of the things that, my business partner, Tony, and I with Coaches Corner University, for when we were looking at setting our price point when we launched, I was like, I want to set the price point at a point where people think they're stealing my money by subscribing to this service. So we're providing so much value that they would be stupid to stop. And I feel like, if we approach the idea of, I'm going to have the best output possible, the input is a side effect of that. So the generation of revenue is simply a side effect of me providing the best possible service that I can. And it seems like you've taken that to the nth degree and just continued to update the type of service. Like, I'll be completely honest, my programs are just Excel spreadsheets. They're just Excel spreadsheets, but I know that they're not paying for that.
Yeah, they're paying for the coaching aspect.
They're paying for me. And but that doesn't mean that I can't continue to, like, I'll steal your ideas. Hell yeah.
No, and like, going back to like the two coaches we just had, we had our first meeting last night and we were talking, and I said, like, the one thing that you guys need to understand is we under promise, over deliver every time. So if we say we're going to get you a 10-pound PR, for example, that's fine. We're saying 10 pound, but we're chasing down 20. If we say we're going to provide you, 2 hours of content, okay, that's cool. We're gonna give you 3.
Yeah.
Anytime someone is involved with us, we want them leaving in that same mindset where they feel like they got an unbelievable deal and they'll never see that again. And the same with the principles of our athletes. Like I told them, I don't care how you coach. I don't care if you want to do DUP, if you want to do conjugate. I don't care what it is. As long as 2 parameters are hit, they're improving and they're happy. If those 2 things are hit, that's all that needs to happen. Anything else is just a pleasant side effect of those 2 principles. That's it. They need to be happy and they need to get results. That's all I care about. And it's in my coaching.
So maybe I think that's a good segue. We talked about, like, I don't care how you coach, but let's dive into some X's and O's. We talked about, like, the gym and your business, and I think that's going to provide a ton of value for people. But, the elephant in the room whenever you're speaking to someone who competes or coaches within the realm of the IPF is there's this, overwhelming majority of lifters who seem to train in this one way. And it's this, like, higher frequency, everyone calls it DUP, but in a lot of cases it's not. but more higher frequency, very RPE biased, highly specialized manner. I'm wondering if that is if you do program in that manner, or if you could give me kind of a little bit of background on how you